Okay, welcome to Fahrenheit Performance podcast episode number 67. Today we are at the T100, what would you call this place? Pit lane? No.
Well,
neutral service mechanics?
Yeah, neutral service mechanics, yeah.
Anthony Foy is your name. Tony Foy, what do you go?
Go by a few.
Hey, mechanic, you go by anything like You travel with the T100. You are the race, would you call you race mechanic?
Yeah, the race mechanic, lead race mechanic for T100, the Halo World Tour, Triathlon World Tour.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
How are you? I've been here for an hour and a bit, and it has been non-stop with the bikes coming in and athletes and you guys just been non-stop from morning to night, right?
Yes, it's been a busy week. It always is on race week, but that's why we're here. Really.
Just for context, it's Wednesday today. Race is on Saturday for the women, Sunday for the men. So everyone is arriving today or tomorrow.
Yeah, well, yeah, everyone is arrived. Well, there's a few have arrived early in the week, and yeah, it's a big influx today, really.
Yeah,
bikes to be worked on.
So, let's just start at the beginning. You are British, right? You are an engineer.
Yes.
You have your own company as well as doing these race mechanics, right?
Yeah.
But you're not a bike mechanic. You're not a shop mechanic. You don't have a bike shop. You're actually an engineer. I'm an engineer as well. So you're actually a design engineer, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So where did you get started in cycling and sort of give us a little bit of history on how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, by trade, design engineer, and basically I grew up skateboarding, surfing, BMXing, and really love bikes and always worked on my own bikes. And I got briefly into racing, more for mountain biking, and then into long multi-day adventure racing, and always worked on my own equipment, and always through my design side, product design side, always like kind of modified and kind of innovated with the equipment I used. Yeah. And then it just progressed into more and more bike specific work. So now, it's the T100 neutral mechanic is one side of my business in Breakthrough Sports. And then I also do a lot of design and development for World Tour teams and national federations on R&D.
So what do you exactly mean by design and development? You are working on products that go into bikes?
Yeah. So there's two sides to that. One is starting from the ground up, designing new products, like a lot of prototype parts for brands. And then the other one is taking a lot of parts and optimizing. So I do a lot of work in drivetrain optimization and roll and resistance. So taking existing OEM parts.
And just make them a little bit better.
Yeah, all about performance and high performance. So yeah.
And then, so how did you get involved in this T100 world?
Yeah, I mean, it's grown over the years. I originally started at Collins Cup. I was at the Collins Cup, and there was seeing the level and the direction that T100 was going with, at the time the PTO were going with redefining triathlon. I started working on bikes there because I've always been a trained mechanic. I haven't worked in a shop, but what I have had is always qualifications. So I did self get all the certificates, and then it's basically 3 years ago was the first season for PTO on the tour, and then T100 last year and this season.
So this is the second year it's in
the
T100. First year it was called PTO World Tour, Asia Tour, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And then last year they rebranded T100, and this year the second year as T100, right? So it's the third year they've done the race. Yeah. So tell me this: how did you go from being a newbie? You got your qualifications as a race mechanic, as a bike mechanic, to the world of race mechanics? Because it's very different, right?
Yeah.
Bike mechanic is different from being a race mechanic.
Yeah. I mean, through my design side, I was fortunate. I've worked for certain bike brands in the past, like large corporate brands and smaller startups. And through that, worked with a lot of teams, Team Sky, Team Ineos, Bardo McLaren. And through that, I understood and respected the whole race ethos. And then it grew into my own business, working directly with other teams. And then it's evolved from there, really.
So then you're involved with the teams on a day-to-day basis, but then getting onto this is a tour, right? Yeah. Getting onto the tour where it's every team, like each person is their own team, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Then you just got sucked into this world, and now you just travel around the world.
Yeah, I mean, for my bike mechanics, I'm 100% neutral for bike mechanics for T100, as in brand. There's no exclusivity to brands. So in triathlon, the only mechanics I do is for T100. Okay. And then I deal and talk directly with athletes, brands, coaches, just to make sure the athletes here have the best service possible. More, I would say, like World Tour cycling that you'd get in a service course that the teams would provide. We tend to provide here for the week in the race, and then each season and each race we elevate and push forward what we can achieve.
Well, it just seems so much more complicated. Like, not to belittle the World Tour people, but if you work for the team, you've got that single bike. Maybe you have a TT version, you have the aero version and the climbing version, right? Yeah. But it's the same brand, same bike, same sponsors. But you've got 50 athletes with 50 different permutations of bikes, right?
Yeah,
and then you need to know how to work on each of them.
Yeah, I mean that's been a learned process over multiple years with the athletes on contracts and wildcards. The process starts way before we're here on race number 1. It started years ago with what we've learned and what we've evolved. We've got a big kind of digital archive and database of all the metrics. So every race, every PTO race, I've got metrics of every part that's been raced on every athlete's bike. I've got every failure that we've had in a bike, and also every winners, and we can see times. So on that metric, we can then make advanced decisions moving forward on what equipment that we bring to each race to kind of help elevate everyone.
Because you're neutral, so you can't cater to any sponsors, right?
No.
So you're just going to make sure that everything fits everyone's bike, somewhat, right?
Yeah, I mean, we bring in all our materials, our spares and accessories. So we use our database to know who's racing, to what to bring in. So I do deal with every athlete racing in the field. We deal directly with the brands and the bikes that they're racing and the components, and then we bring in that equipment to the race. So, and that all obviously, like I say, it's subcategorized in. There's a lot of digital side to it and spreadsheets, but that means that we have the right equipment in the right locations.
That sounds like a lot of equipment though to travel around to travel around the world, right? Does it just go in a container somewhere and it just travels around, or you personally?
So some of the equipment does stay in containers in certain regions, but truthfully, a lot of all of the tools and materials that we have in this workshop today, I travel with, because obviously.
But it's not personally your excess baggage on your. It is.
I bring in. I mean, apart from frames and forks, we do bring in a lot of components. All the brands racing, base bar, seat post, clams, specific parts. But mainly, a lot of the brands are constantly working on developing new products. So the athletes may be racing parts that aren't officially released or available.
Prototypes or something.
But that's why all the parts that I do bring in generally sit below tablecloths that kind of can see. Yeah. And some of them may be embargoed. So we just make sure every athlete has a level that they deserve.
And then all these bikes, like the athletes' bikes are always at the cutting edge, right? Yeah. Especially triathlon, where you have the aero bars or the mono bars and all these different stuff. How do you stay ahead of their equipment? Because a lot of it's one-off, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, again, from my background in design and engineering, I have a good kind of understanding if it's a part made from subtractive, like CNC work, or if it's additive manufacturing. I stay on top of that side of things by really kind of knowing the technology that's designing it in the first place. And the other side to my business, other than the cycle mechanics, I do a lot of testing at Silverstone Sports Engineering Hub in the UK. Yep. So in the wind tunnel, the rolling resistant rig, and that allows me to kind of know the setups and the application of each bit of equipment, because the equipment is only beneficial for performance if it's set up in the application it's originally.
You're really living the dream of a mechanics and people in the cycling industry, where you get to go to the wind tunnel, you get to play with the latest tech. You see the cutting edge bikes every day, right? You work on them. Yeah. You know all the athletes.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's it is. I'll be honest. I don't want to simplify it. It really is a dream. But I believe that passion, like truthfully, it works because the trust and the trust that we've built over the years, and that is above all what I believe in. Like, because we can have all the products in the world, but we need to be trusted. I mean, the racing, the speeds that the athletes are racing at, and like you say, the performance, the setups, and everything is so on the cutting edge. Yeah, things have to be right. There is no error.
And
to be had.
There's big money involved, right? Yeah. So if you didn't torque up the seat post and it drops on someone, and then they can't do the bike that they want, and then if they were in the lead and then suddenly they pull out, it's a huge thing. I mean, and that's why we open the workshop for the whole week. Yeah. And it's not mandatory, but athletes don't have to come to the neutral service. They can. We also invite brands such as Canyon. They're here with their pro support team servicing their athletes this week.
we invite athletes, teams or partners or anyone that works on the bikes. They can come in or themselves to work on the bikes in the workshop. So we provide the equipment, the tools, but we're here. Yeah. So it's great when we do work on a bike, because also, like, back to the database, if on race day we have any, if there's any athlete that needs kind of our service on race day, we already have intel on the bike, and we know exactly if we've worked on it, what we've torque settings, what setups they've got. So when we're reacting to a call on the field of play, we know we're being kind of proactive in our reaction.
So you're not just bringing out a generic wheel to someone and try to...
No, I mean, for an example, we know every athlete, if they're running, we know if what disc they're running, what tyres, what tyre pressures.
The cassette ratios.
Yeah, right? So we will try and tailor that. If a wheel is required, we will tailor the set of that wheel to them. So if we know the athlete, we know the tyre pressures they're running, which we have that information, we'll preset that all for that athlete. So we know it's the nearest thing we can have other than the wheel that they have.
It's so complicated. It's so many parts, moving lots of new parts. So let's slow down a bit.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, bikes in general, triathlon bikes, I see a lot of triathlon bikes in my clinic. You must see more, but they're always pushing the envelope of technology, right?
Yeah.
What are the biggest trends that over the past 3 years, what are the biggest trends are you seeing? Like, I see a lot of hydration on aero bars now for aerodynamic purposes, right? Yeah. What else do you see behind the scenes?
I mean, the number one thing at the moment, or not at the moment, is the prohibitive factors of aerodynamics used to be limited access to wind tunnels, but now with so many on bike kind of wind tunnel metric kind of systems, like data acquisition systems, and also more tunnels open with a better price point, the biggest area is aerodynamics. And you're right, integrating that into cockpit setups and hydration, that is the number one factor that a lot of brands, athletes are targeting. But obviously now with tyres, with tubeless especially, and obviously being able to lower the tyre pressure, run wider tyres, and there's lots of data, inserts, tubeless sealants, the quest for that kind of performance factor, knowing the mechanical side, that's also a huge factor that then comes into play with the aerodynamics. Because the more components you're adding to the bike for aerodynamics, obviously that isn't such a factor on your aero, but it is bringing extra weight to the bike, but it's also bringing more componentry complex to the bike, so more of a mechanical aspect. It needs more bobs that need torquing, more integration that needs body scans to make the parts. So the biggest area is hand in hand really at the moment with aerodynamics that blends into like the whole eco-cycle of the athlete and the bike as one.
Okay, so high performance tech support.
Yep.
I saw it on your resume. What does it mean?
That's a great question. High performance to me is doing the best job you can with the facilities and materials and the location that you're in.
Yep.
So the high performance tech support is to do exactly that as tech support for triathletes, track cyclists, mountain bike, road cyclists to the highest level. At that particular kind of level that you're at, so to speak. And that can be no compromise and give bringing innovation and bringing real world kind of application all together. And that's where I see.
And this is all the bikes here are high performance, right?
Yeah.
And you tech support, right? Because I just see so much stuff that is not on stock bikes currently around.
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
Especially the cockpit stuff. Drivetrain, fair, it's about the same. Maybe a pulley here and there, but it's like where they have the hands and maybe 3D printed aero bars or the different hydration setups that are going on, right?
Yeah, I mean the most disruptive thing at the moment, I guess, in the world is AI, and you can drive the 3D software programs on the back of AI.
Oh, you can.
So I do a lot with Autodesk, and we have design parameters we can put in, so we put what we don't want to create what could be. So and with additive manufacturing, 3D printing, the cockpits and everything, it's more attainable by more people. So yes,
and these are prototypes in a day, right?
I mean, when we were working on full-time product development for another brand, we were producing products off the additive machines quicker than we could get the next iteration.
Yeah.
So as soon as we had a tangible part in our hand, we'd already have the next design.
And then sometimes you need to touch something or feel it, and see it, and
so important.
See how it looks on the bike or how it integrates with everything else, right?
Yeah, integration is the key. Or the sometimes not.
So tell me this: so now all these bikes are coming in from the athletes. What's the process? What do you get the bike? I guess you know the bike because
we know first race of the year. So some of the bikes the athletes will have filled out forms, and we will know what the bike should be, and we see the bike, but we don't actually know the bike till we've seen the bike. And obviously there's that whole application. Other mechanics around the world have put these bikes together, and there's obviously all the bike fitting metrics and things. So we're seeing them for the first time this season, and the process is athletes can book their bikes in, and they bring them in, and they can have unlimited slots for us to work on. We're not here to optimize and give performance advantages. We're here to give them what they've worked their whole pre-season kind of time on, to give them that at 100%.
So when they come here, they will put their bike together roughly in the hotel room and then just bring it down here. And
no, I mean, some athletes will choose for us to build the complete bike. So that is the differential factor, I guess, here. This in triathlon for PTO, we can build the whole bike for the athletes. We can obviously get it all race ready for race day, and if it's tires or change or certain changes, and then we'll be there on race day for support. And then post race, we can strip the bike, pack it up, and know then next round of the tour we know what was wearing, what needs replacing, and we have that conversation. So it helps us down the season as the narrative rolls.
Okay, so my world is bike fit, right? How do you, when the bike comes in, how are you making sure that their bike fit that they've had from somebody is being preserved on the bike that you build, right? Do they give you the fit reports, or do you have pictures? You take pictures of it before or after, or what are you doing?
Yeah, we have on the database of all the bikes, obviously all the components are listed. We also have side, top and front profile pictures. And again, on the back end of what I do, I actually overlay those onto a scale.
Okay.
And I know obviously millimeters, but we can still overlay them on a scale, so we do have a reference point. Also, we have, as athletes come in, we document certain things down, and we have obviously tooling that we travel with, so we can set up angles or lengths of things. And then at certain races, we do carry a full bike fit unit that packs down into a pedal case. At the moment, it's in Europe.
Okay.
So I bring that in, and then we can do the bike fit.
So do the athletes sometimes come in, you put it together? I saw you got some turbo trainers over there. They ride on it. Oh, it feels a bit high or low, or
exactly. Yeah, and again, I mean, everyone's body's reacting different. Being in Singapore, or they might want more hydration. They might need to move their arms and positions. So positions might change from what they had in the lab or where they bike fit. So we have the turbo trainers here. Turbo trainers can be booked by athletes and taken away, or they can be used in here. And this is just a training facility, the same standardized kind of facility that we'll have at every race. And that allows, like, exactly that. If no one wants to go out on the road in the day, they can sit on the turbo trainer and make iteration changes in here. And that's the reason why we'll keep it in the workshop, because it means we're together. And if there's, if we're listening constantly, all of the mechanics in here, we're listening. And if we hear bike gear's not indexing correctly, we can go over there and then and make changes. So it kind of brings that kind of connectivity.
I was actually, so when I was just hanging out just now, I was actually surprised how many athletes coming in here, and they're actually just fiddling with things, like the length of bungee to hold the bottle, or, which has got things going. I would have thought they would have had this set months ago. They've been training on it, and it's locked in. But it doesn't seem like, is that common?
I mean, from my background of design, the innovation never stops and progression never stops. So is it common? Yes. Some athletes will have their setup done, and it will not, they will not change it, because they're other athletes.
There's so many hours training on it, right?
But then as soon as you do something today, it's out of date tomorrow. Out of date. So there is always new progression. So sometimes it may be a factor that athletes have seen other bikes here and how other people have set up. Certain courses might want different bottle cage systems or retention straps and things, but other courses might not. So they'll be taking them off. And it really is, once the recons are on the road and knowing that the surface.
I'm just so surprised, because the old adage of you never try something new on race day. And there's the things that, to be fair, the things that they're doing is not really very big.
No.
But they are still doing things, right?
What I think helps is we have this facility to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
We always know where baseline is, so we can always revert back to where we were. Yeah. So this, like, we are still 3-4 days out from race day. And it allows those changes to happen, which could be good for placebo and everything, you know, which are, again, it's part of the process to be, I guess, at the elite of the sport. So because we have the service and the knowledge here in the room, you know, we will help and guide as much as we can, but staying neutral to everything, you know.
And the psychology of age group athletes is one thing where we all just fighting against ourselves for a certain time. But the pros where even if there's no advantage, but they perceive themselves having an advantage because of something, it goes the sports psychology of it goes a long way as well, right?
Absolutely huge. I mean, going back to, you know, oversized radio cages and things, there's a large psychology, you know, there's obviously, I was involved in a research project about the placebo effect of an oversized cage and the pulley wheel spinning. So if you're on the start line of a race and you lift your wheel and you spin the front wheel and it spins longer than a rival, have you got a placebo effect advantage over someone else? But a free spinning wheel doesn't mean it's more efficient mechanically.
Okay.
But are you playing mind games?
There you are.
And I've done a whole research. I was involved in a whole research project of understanding with pulley wheels, if they spin for longer on an advert, will they make you kind of feel it's a faster product? There's still data, but you know, there's lots of factors, and that's you know, a lot of every edge. In the whole kind of world of, there's still, I don't want to say low hanging fruit to be had, but there's lots of incremental changes that can be built up into building blocks.
Well, the whole point is you put as many things on the right side of the fence as possible.
Yeah.
You don't know which of those things is going to actually make a difference. No. One of them might make a difference. All 10 of them put together might make a difference. But as long as you start stacking them on the good side, they're going to all contribute somewhere, right?
Yeah. And it's, 100%.
So, how are the pro bikes different from a regular punter's bike?
Well, I mean, a lot of the bikes are, as we said earlier, there's so much bike fit time and aero work, and the pros, the bikes are road, you know, the schedule of events, there's a lot of time goes on to that TT bike, you know, a lot of training. We're on location here. Most athletes won't have the luxury of a second bike or a third bike you didn't train on. So there's a lot of time going on to the bikes. How they're different, I guess, age group, you really have the choice that you can go but I mean, you really have the choice to buy what you can. Pros can, but obviously if they're aligned or associated with certain brands, there may be products that they're using that sometimes they
wouldn't choose.
They wouldn't choose. But then equally, there's to be a pro is a really hard, you know, we're at the total cutting edge of the world of triathlon here. So it's a financial, you know, you'd have to kind of take product and you know, reimbursement to make a living. It's hard.
Of course.
So the main difference, I think the bikes really get rode so hard. You know, like I know many kind of friends that are age group athletes, and their bike, you know, they obviously ride as hard as they can, but the pros, the power and the kind of the riding that goes onto the bikes, they are really pushed to the limit. I mean, and that is on every kind of aspect of the bike.
Sort of like a race car, right? A race car is not just like a BMW you get by off the showroom is not the BMW of the race, and they're pushed so much harder than it.
They're pushed so hard to the limit. I mean, some of the bikes, and a lot of the bikes are running prototype parts, and that may not be, they may be branded as, you know, there's a lot of parts on the bikes that aren't readily commercially available. So that would be a massive kind of differential point. But I think the fact is they are pushed so hard. And if we ever see racing in something, the bikes are, I mean, they're optimized machines. Like every athletes are optimized, you know, with all nutrition and things. The bikes are the exact same. So effectively, when they cross the line, that some of the components are spent on the bike. And that's like bringing it to the limit. You know, if you think about it, wax chains is kind of an area you get your race and you kind of break them in and get to the point and race. Then you need to re-wax. And there's other components on the bike that are just pushed so hard.
So that was actually one of my questions. Wax chains, right? Most of the athletes have probably got wax chains, but they're probably using different waxes. As a neutral support, how do you juggle that? Do you just put your neutral support wax on there, or do the athletes bring their wax and say, this wax goes on my bike?
I mean, on that point, and from other work I've done in the past of drivetrain, I'm not going to be selling, or I'm not going to be promoting or advocating a certain brand over another. As a statistic, the last race last season in the T100 Tour in Dubai, I bring the materials in, but I also bring the oils and lubricants, cleaners and consumables. I brought 14 different chain lubes and waxes, hard wax, like obviously drip wax, oils, wet lubes, dry lubes. I bought 14. So if an athlete went, it's a big race, it's the grand final. And we still carry these lubes with us for every race. So if an athlete's forgotten a product and we're in a location where that brand might not be available, we've got it here. So that's how we deal with it. I'm not promoting one after the other. I will do what...
Well, you wouldn't put a generic on their bike, but you'll just know what they have and you use their...
Yeah, we could put a generic. We could just bring the generic lube. But to me, again, it's the whole point of high performance. There's no point in being generic if we're trying to be high performance. And that's so. I mean, that's the same on lots of things that we do here. We'll bring the full range. I mean, it really is that case.
I see some latex tubes hanging over there. Are most of the riders on tubes or tubeless?
It's a big split. It's a big split. Certain riders may change for the race because of conditions. I mean, 2 years ago when we were here, obviously it was the first time we had neutral service in a PTO race. And that's the Asian World Tour, as we said. And we had a lot of punches while bikes were being racked in transition and the athletes were swimming and on the course. Tubeless was 2 years old there, 2 years ago. So there's a lot more kind of knowledge in that world. But yeah, we have a big split. And again, tubeless sealant, we have a whole range of sealants that athletes will use here. So
as a neutral support, if someone has a problem out in the field, the tubes must be easier to fix.
Yeah, so I would know the number of who's riding what, but I'll never tell anyone, there's this X amount or what they're running. But yeah, we know if an athlete has an unfortunate situation where they have a puncture, I'll already know that they'll be running tubeless. They might have an insert in, they might not. I'll know that. So I'll know if they can get to the wheel station, if we need to deploy, if we're thinking, oh no, the fitment of that, the wheel's going to take longer than it would be to put a tube in. But generally, we bring in our own wheels and we will custom build the wheel for a puncher. I say custom build. The wheels are set up, but someone might be running SRAM, Shimano 11, 12. We won't turn up with the wrong wheel. We'll have the real wheel done, and we'll set the tire pressures to that athlete.
But this is all happening in the field of play, and so many things are going on, and then you got to get all these different things. At the same time, it's like the guy juggling Rubik's cubes and doing it at the same time, right?
Yeah, I mean, my view on race day mechanics is proactive, not reactive. So it started months ago. By the time we get to race day, we're already we've worked on the bikes this week. We've worked on this year's new bikes that athletes are running, or bikes that they maybe had last season. But we have 3 points of contact. We have transition, the tech zone, and moto support as athletes out on the field of play. But I also, in the tech zone, will have live connection with broadcast, with technical officials, with the race director. So if a camera that isn't live on the broadcast feed picks up an athlete in trouble, I will already be processing data and being reactive to get the required kind of facility to them.
So we're in a hotel right now, right? The race is 1 kilometer down the road at Marina Bay, right? When do you move from this station to that station? Because the race is on Saturday afternoon, women. Will you be there all day Saturday, or are you going to be here all day?
Yes. So Saturday morning and Sunday morning, both days, because the race rangers will be fitted to the bikes. We will fit race rangers in this workshop. So again, up to race day and including those hours before race that athletes have to rack their bikes. As a full workshop team, we'll have a fully operational workshop here, and race rangers will be fitted in here.
Okay. But how do they do they ride the bikes?
Yeah, we depending on races, depending on location, sometimes we'll transfer the bikes. Some athletes will want to ride the bikes. They want to do shakedown miles. We will offer the service that the athlete wants.
Okay.
Which again is very unique. But by the time the first athlete gets to, we will deploy our asset of mechanics across here, and we will already deploy mechanics to transition to T1. So by the time the first athlete gets to transition, we'll already be there, because there's no point setting up bikes with tire pressures in here in a nice, air conditioned room. So we will be down there again with a secondary workshop set up. So when the athletes arrive into T1, we'll already be operational to receive bikes. Should there be something that's gone wrong, maybe a product's got, maybe there's a bike we didn't see in the week that we then need to work on. We can work on in transition. Athletes can go, obviously they'll leave the bikes, and then we're fortunate that we can work on the bike should something happen when the race starts.
You make it sound like you have an army of mechanics. There's only like 4 or 5 of you, right?
We have a hard working ethos. We're very fortunate. We have Alaric, who's obviously a local mechanic, and he's been with us of every race here in Singapore. And that is kind of pivotal to this operation in Singapore, really, because we have the knowledge of weather, roads, we know I know the profiles, I know the race course, but local knowledge always wins. And we do that in every region. We'll bring a race, we'll have local knowledge. Again, another asset resource that we have within our pool. But there isn't an army. We just, being a race mechanic is hard work, and it's phenomenal hard work. And we're here to make sure every bike we do not have a DNS. We want every bike to start the race.
Well, we want every athlete to start the race and have no problems. If they don't start because of sickness or whatever.
I mean, that's as a race mechanic, as a mechanic, we can try and help as much as we can. But
you don't want to be the reason that someone doesn't start the race.
No,
right?
so every bike we want to get to T1, and we will get to T1. And in that transition from race hotel to transition, we'll have another deployment of mechanics, the same mechanics, but we'll kind of piggyback there. As soon as the race starts, we'll redeploy. We'll stay in transition so every athlete gets out. We'll have other mechanics in tech zone and other mechanics on moto mechanics.
Up until about half an hour ago, I thought that during the race, you guys just hung out in the pits, and if something happens, you would fix it. But it sounds way more complicated than that. So if you run through like what's going on in your head, like what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what's happening on the race day.
I mean, fortunate with the service and the kind of onboarding by the athletes. We're obviously, the bikes will be in transition. I'm getting information from, someone may have a reservation or a concern about a bike, and I'm getting information fed from me from athlete support teams, from brands, while the bikes are racked. So they may say, I think their shifting was tricky on the way down. They may not have spoke to us, but we then know, and we have intel, and that's really important.
Do you have live TV, or like if there's 6 cameras out in the field, is there 6 TVs there that you can watch what's going on?
We can. So on the feed of the broadcast, we can watch other what's obviously broadcast globally, and what we
but you're not just watching the YouTube feed that everyone's seeing. You've got actual other videos.
And another it's very, the whole connection piece is quite critical to what we're achieving. I mean, as PTO, as a whole brand, and I'm not talking on behalf of PTO because I'm kind of independent as such, but I have connection into the broadcast truck, which will have every live camera feed. So that if there's anything about a bike, that will be fed to me, and we can deploy an asset to there. So it really is a complex, I'm probably simplifying a very complex kind of piece, but that isn't just down to, that is the connection of a whole team really playing together. And that goes back to that high performance, it really is multiple kind of teams, from race director to race course director, the whole kind of infrastructure feeding in. There's a lot of communication that goes. I mean, I dread to think how much WhatsApp and data burn but that's the bit that doesn't necessarily get seen. The bit that gets seen is if there's a mechanic doing an action of actual kind of fixing a bike on the camera.
Like I remember seeing Alaric just running and with a wheel in his hand and helping someone out, and it was live on TV, and I know that guy, and then, but that's just a fraction of actually what's going on, right?
I mean, what we race mechanics globally, doesn't matter what the discipline, you don't want to be doing anything on race day. That's the job. Like, if no one really wants to be running anywhere with a wheel, that's the kind of the last thing that we want. We just want everyone to have a fair race and race and no mechanicals, and that's the bit that we will hope for, and that's the bit we really try and.
It's sort of funny, like your retirement job is going to be something less stressful, like diffusing bombs or bombing era.
It's like
It's like, that's so stressful. So tell me this, stress, right? You got someone coming in, big money, T100 is big money. It's like Formula One, right? There's only 9 races a year, and people's contracts and stuff are judged on the performances in these races, right? Let's just say something simple like a flat tire.
Yeah.
You need to get it done fast, accurately, and succinctly so it wouldn't happen again.
Yeah.
Right? Talk about that, what sort of process is involved in that. Is that just your experience and knowing the database of these bikes?
Yeah, I mean, there's, it's not that if we saw someone in front of us with a punch, I'd be sitting, on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
But the reaction of every mechanic in the field of play on race day is through experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
And that is through that level of support. Yeah. And it really is like a selective group of people that will work on the world.
I guess seat post is a better example, right? Someone's seat post has slipped. You know the measurement. You quickly go out and fix it, but you need to make sure that it doesn't slip again.
Yeah.
You need to get it done once and get it done right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So again, knowing the bikes and knowing if we know that, we'll know the bikes and we know torque settings and things, which would that's a factory setting. We do the torque setting, but equally we'll also know if there was a kind of inherent problem before going in. But that's what we don't want anything to go wrong twice.
Yeah.
If it goes wrong at all, we don't.
What are the typical race issues that happen with the pros?
I mean, I don't want to. I like to hope no issues will happen.
Yeah.
But I would say racing. The biggest issue we have, and this is racing, bringing the whole kind of collective week together, is transportation of the bikes.
Okay.
And I'm not kind of I don't want to say the biggest issue on race day is X, Y, or Z, because it just feels like I'm kind of jinxing. I always think it's transiting the bikes. I mean, this season there's a lot of races. There's a lot of bikes that are designed to be optimum in a position.
Yeah.
And that probably wasn't when they're taken apart, put in a box, and 30,000 feet up in the air.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you get the position perfect, and if you only raced in the city that you got the bike fit in, it's fine. Or put in the back of a truck, and but you've got to break it down into parts, put it back, get it right.
And I'm going to be really honest. Most athletes, they do it. I mean, I'm not sitting here going we do every bike. We do some that require it, and others were like no. And I got to be honest. Very honest, there's athletes racing on Saturday and Sunday, both days, that are phenomenal mechanics.
Yeah.
And they are absolute phenomenal. They might come in here, they might not. But either way, every bit of confidence, if we don't see that bike, is in that bike. And it is like, and that bit there is from their years of experience racing, where they haven't had a workshop, but equally, they may have a passion about bike mechanics. They're also an awesome athlete. Well,
at the end of the day, when all this goodness is gone, they've still got to put their bike together when they get home to Colorado or they get home to Nice or wherever they live, right?
Yeah.
You don't follow them back to their house.
No, I mean,
you put it back together one day.
And this is just, again, I mean, it really is like redefining triathlon, as PTO do. It really is bringing like the best service that we can on every level, from masseuses, transfers, airports and things. Yeah. So we're here giving the best service we can, but some don't require it. Some do, some don't. And again, that's, it's not forced upon anyone. But yeah, I honestly think the biggest problem is transiting bikes around the world.
So from age grouper to pro, right? Everyone's got to transport their bike somehow. What are the must do's you think to minimize any issues?
The more parts you strip off the bike, obviously it sounds common sense, but the more protection you put on the bike and the more parts you strip off the bike, the more chance you have of an optimum bike on race day. So I've been there myself where I'm like, oh, you know what? I just leave the discs on. They're going to get bent.
Yeah. So remove the rear derailleur as well?
Yeah. So derailleur, the mech, so it's kind of like you could leave your derailleur on and bring a spare derailleur cage, a mech hanger, but equally you could just take your derailleur off and maybe not bring a spare one. So it's just as much work. It's more work because you take the frame with it if it bends. So the more parts you strip off a bike, it really is the better, and the more protection. And obviously the investment is like in cases and things. You know, you've got a whole bike fit, and the bike's custom made. It might have additive on it. You can get custom cases that, you know, and lots of pros do have custom cases, and lots of age group athletes do. But that's the bit that is the end-to-end application of what you're trying to do. You live here, you're racing here, but you've got to get to to the start before you get to the end.
Yep.
You know,
got it. No, totally agree. And then your engineering background, right? So, if you use racing cars as an example, right? The fueling strategies in Formula One is always such that you finish the race and practically the car will run out of fuel as long as it runs out of fuel after the finish line, and you get to the finish line as fast as you can. How much of that is happening on the bikes? Are they engineered? You don't want to over-engineer it because it's going to be too heavy, for example, right? Or it'll be too stiff, or you want to just get it right. Are you involved in any of that here or in your other work?
I mean, for triathlon, I'm neutral mechanics here, and I won't work on development or design for triathlon for that reason. For track cycling, for World Tour, I am involved in a lot of design, and there's a factor of safety that you put into every part. So you like to know certain products have more factors of safety than others. So an F1 car can cross the line and something can go wrong, but it's designed like that. An aeroplane has a higher factor of safety because you really, you know, if you've got to divert to another airport, you don't want that factor, so you want it quite a lot. So am I designed? Yes. And that's a huge factor. I mean, all the bike brands, they do, you know, a lot of FEA, a lot of CDA, and that's all harmony of one another. So yes, a lot of the bikes will have parts on them. I mean, take for example chains again. I know I said earlier, when they get across the line, the chain or the lubricant is gone. And a lot of track cycling I do at certain federations, we scrub the tires in and do a lot of rolling resistance. Like we wear the tires. So if they're going for certain records or like on an hour record or something, they will the tire will cross the line and it won't be used again, but it's done its job. It's an application.
Exactly right.
So it's bringing the correct application for what you're trying to do.
Are any of the athletes trying to do that, push those sort of boundaries as well?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of small things that athletes do and lots of large things that they do. And some of them are so in your face that you can see. It's amazing that not everyone does them. And other ones aren't. And that's where I'll end it.
Okay, I guess one more question is, Singapore is notoriously hot. It's a hilly race. It's really humid. Are the athletes here, or I guess if you don't tell the athletes what to do, but are athletes bringing their bikes here differently for a cold race, for example, right? Are they setting up the bikes any differently in Singapore as they would in somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, there's again, this is race one, so it's really hard to think last season because a lot of lessons were learned, and you know, a lot of knowledge is learned about person's bike setups and things on the tour. But yes, I mean, hydration and keeping cool is so critical. I mean, looking back at, you know, previous athletes over the last 2 years here, I mean, there are changes that have been made, but I would say most athletes have come here with the changes made. So where we're saying the changes, they already know that they've been on heat camps, or that, you know, that it's not that they're getting here and go, oh, it's hot, and all that work is done. But I would say the bikes that would be set up here would be different from other races, you know, definitely.
So is it like they're having 3 bottle cages instead of regular 2, or they're using one bys at the front because it's that sort of
I mean that's again one by, the roads are great here, absolutely phenomenal, and the surface is so smooth, one by, and then you wouldn't, you know, meaning there would be no chain slap where the chain could actually come off. So and then where you say on the 3 bottles, I mean, there's a new ruling that only 2, you know, so from last year we did see certain bikes have 3 bottles on the rear. You're only allowed 2 this season on the rear, and you're allowed 2 litres maximum up front. So cockpits have changed through the rule changes, but then obviously a certain amount of hydration and electrolytes will be needed to take on. And I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, but obviously a lot of the bikes will have onboard kind of hydration systems. So there may be more of a focus on there than external bottles that we would have seen at other races. So there's the world there's the race and the humidity, but there's the rule changes that have to be abided by as well. So,
and I guess the a lot of athletes are gonna grab a cold bottle, just pour it on their head and toss it straight away, and then they don't have to put it in the bottle.
Yeah, I mean, on the whole bike course for obviously pro and age group, there is aid stations.
Yep.
And there's a whole host of aid stations with exactly that, electrolytes and cold drinks and.
Anthony, I think we could sit here all night, but we should probably wrap it up. It's been a pleasure. If anyone has questions for you, would Instagram be your personal Instagram? Would it be the best way to follow you?
I do have a Breakthrough Sports Instagram.
Okay. And So you have breakthroughs.sports.events. Is that correct?
So yes, that's my Instagram, and also emails is sometimes, like on my email, I'm breakthroughsports.co.uk.
Okay.
I have a connection there, and just just get in touch. Absolutely, I'm all for about conversations that can help everyone. That's where I fully believe. So yeah,
Tony, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for your time. Thanks.
Good luck with all this craziness tomorrow, and I will see you guys on Saturday.
I will do.
I'll be at the race. I'll be on the start manager, so for the age groupers.
Amazing.
So I'll be around. I'll see you guys out there.
Yeah, we will. It's
hi.
It's gonna be an amazing weekend. I can't.
I think if you're a Singapore triathlete, this is the race that you got to come and race. You got to be at. This is it. It's like the glamour event of the year.
If you're not a Singapore athlete, you still have to be there, I think. If you're into triathlon,
just to see the event, it's a big show.
Yeah, right? It's amazing. Taking the racing out of it, I would struggle if I was racing because I'd just be looking around everywhere. The skyline.
And it's the only day of the year, or only 2 days of the year, where you're allowed to swim in the Marina Bay.
Wow.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed to put your toes in there. Dragon boat races. They do it, but you're not allowed to get in. And if you fall out of the boat, you got to get right back in the boat.
Yeah.
So
it's a service. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Talk soon. Bye.